All right, strap in, everyone, because today we are diving deep, deep into the Garden of Nurgle.
The Plague Father himself.
That's the one. You reached out wanting to get a better understanding of this chaos god of decay from the Warhammer universe, and it's honestly a great pick
Oh, yeah.
for a deep dive because he's just fascinating.
He is.
He's all rot and pestilence on the surface, but there's like this
Ah.
weird layer of,
Yeah.
well, we'll get to that.
There is.
We got a whole stack of Warhammer lore here.
Yeah.
Descriptions of his champions and even some accounts of his plagues and battles they've caused. So where should we even start with this?
Well, what I always found fascinating is that we view decay as this purely negative thing.
Right.
But Nurgle, despite being so grotesque, seems to embody this primal truth.
Okay.
Decay is as essential to life as growth. It's disturbing, but it forces us to confront the cycle of existence that we kind of usually avoid.
I see what you mean. It's like he's this funhouse mirror, reflecting back this side of reality that we try to ignore.
Yeah.
So the lore says that Nurgle, when he arrived in the Warhammer world, he was drawn to life.
Yes.
But specifically, its decay.
Right. It's like he's a gardener, but one who's obsessed with compost.
Right.
But instead of using it to nurture new life, he cultivates the rot itself.
Oh, okay.
He's fascinated by the teeming, microscopic life that thrives in decay, even if it's harmful to others.
I see.
The texts all emphasize this almost tender affection he has for all life,
Interesting.
even as he spreads disease.
So he's a bit of a paradox then.
Huge paradox, yeah.
Hey, so are you saying there's something noble in embracing rot and disease? Help me out here.
I don't know about noble, but it does point to this deeper philosophical concept. Life and death are two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
And Nurgle embodies that. He sees disease not as an ending, but as a transformation, a liberation from the limits of the physical form.
So for Nurgle, a plague isn't an act of destruction.
Right.
It's more like
More of a,
setting butterflies free from their chrysalises.
there you go.
But that is a disturbing visual. But
It is.
I think I'm getting his twisted logic.
Yeah,
His power reflects this weird duality too, right?
it does.
It's described as less stable than the other chaos gods,
Right.
but potentially more potent. It kind of ebbs and flows like a plague,
Yeah.
sometimes exceeding even his brother gods in that
In the Great Game.
the Great Game,
Yeah.
which is their struggle for dominance.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the difference between like a steady fire
Right.
and a raging inferno.
Exactly.
So the fire is consistently destructive, but the inferno can just consume everything.
Yeah.
Speaking of consuming,
Yes,
let's
too.
talk about Nurgle's gifts and their impact on the world.
Yeah, and it's crucial to remember that what Nurgle considers a blessing, disease, decay, transformation,
Sure.
it's a source of terror for most mortals.
Right.
He sees himself as this benevolent giver, showering the world with these concoctions that free people from the fear of death and the pain of existence.
It's like offering someone a cyanide-laced cupcake for their birthday.
Okay.
You might think you're giving them a gift, but
Yeah, right.
yeah, bad analogy.
Yeah.
But it's not just like abstract suffering, is it?
No, it's not.
There are real consequences to Nurgle's generosity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One that jumps to mind is the red pox outbreak in Musalon.
Oh, right.
It wasn't just a disease, it was societal collapse.
Yeah.
The city was nearly wiped out, and the people who did survive
Mm-hmm.
were often disfigured or driven mad.
And it's a good reminder that densely populated areas are really vulnerable to those outbreaks.
For sure.
Kind of makes you think about the Black Death
Exactly.
and how those events shaped societies.
Absolutely. And in Nurgle's case, these plagues aren't random.
Right.
They're deliberate acts, orchestrated to spread his influence and reshape the world in his image.
So he's not just a passive force of nature. He's actively shaping events, guiding the world towards his vision of, well, paradise. Okay, to understand his grand plan, we need to meet the individuals who act as his agents of change, his champions of decay.
Right.
All right, I'm ready to meet these champions.
Okay.
But, I love a good origin story.
Yeah.
Do these individuals actively seek out Nurgle's gifts, or does he choose them?
It's usually a combination of both.
Okay.
Take Valnir the Reaper, for example.
Okay.
He was once a Norscan chieftain, a warrior,
Yes.
who, despite his victories, just felt this profound emptiness. Consumed by despair, he cried out to the Chaos Gods for some way to ease his suffering.
So he wasn't looking for Nurgle specifically. His despair was like a beacon.
Exactly, yeah. Nurgle saw the opportunity to twist Valnir's pain into power. He answers Valnir's prayer not with solace, but with a soul-devouring halberd and the mantle of the Reaper of Souls.
Talk about a twisted genie granting a wish. But it sounds like Valnir wasn't exactly a willing participant in all this.
Yeah, there is a sense of tragedy to him, right? He sought an end to his suffering, but instead he becomes a conduit for Nurgle's power, spreading despair and death.
So we have a despairing warrior transformed into a champion of decay. What other types of individuals end up in Nurgle's service?
Well, we have the Glotkin. Not one champion, but three. Triplets.
Oh, wow.
Each promising in their own way. A warrior, a sorcerer, and well, let's just say the third brother was more interested in brawling and chasing women.
That sounds like a typical group of siblings.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
So how did they end up as champions of Nurgle? Surely a god of decay wouldn't be interested in their, well, mundane squabbles.
Well, their lives changed when their village was attacked by Nordland forces.
Okay.
They were seeking retribution for past raids. The triplets fought bravely, but they were overwhelmed and forced to watch as everyone around them was slaughtered.
Oh.
They were consumed by despair, and, well, that's when Nurgle made his move.
So utter hopelessness opens the door.
Exactly. He thrives on that, on the breakdown of hope.
Yeah.
He twisted their grief and rage into this monstrous power, transforming them into the Glotkin. Grotesque, monstrous figures wielding the combined might of decay and this twisted familial bond.
Okay, so despair seems to be a key ingredient in Nurgle's recipe for creating champions.
That's a good observation, yeah. It's not just about spreading disease, it's about exploiting vulnerability, offering a twisted kind of solace to those who've lost everything. But for every champion like Valnir whose story has that tragedy, there are others who actively embrace Nurgle's gifts.
Really? Tell me about one of these enthusiastic devotees.
Okay, well, there's Orgrot's Demon Spew, the Bastard King.
Demon Spew. Okay, he wins for most evocative name so far.
He does.
Why would anyone want to die from Nurgle's rot? Doesn't sound like a pleasant way to go.
Well, remember, Nurgle's followers see disease and decay as transformative, a liberation from the limitations of their form. Dying from Nurgle's rot is like an ascension, a merging with their god. But here's the ironic twist.
I'm sensing a butt coming. Do tell.
Orgot's own resilience, which he got from being half-demon, prevents him from dying. Nurgle's rot has transformed him. He even has a plague-bearer's horn in place of an eye, but he remains trapped, unable to achieve the blessing that he so craves.
So he's in this agonizing state of limbo, a walking embodiment of Nurgle's power, but unable to fully embrace it. That's tragic, even for a champion of decay.
Yes.
But he's still considered powerful despite this.
Oh, absolutely. He's a force of nature. He's heavily armored, all but immune to wounds, capable of spewing demonic ichor that burns through steel, melts flesh. He even rides a pox maggoth named Whippermaw into battle.
Okay, a pox maggot sounds like something out of a nightmare, but you've piqued my curiosity. Who else has Nurgle twisted to serve his grand decaying purpose? A pox maggoth. Not exactly the kind of steed you see in a royal procession, but hey, to each their own, I guess. So we've got these champions driven by despair, some who embrace it all,
Right.
Others are stuck in this weird in-between.
Yeah.
What I'm wondering is, like, how much control does Nurgle have over all this? Is he, like, actively orchestrating every plague, every mutation, or is there, like, a randomness to it?
That's where things get really fascinating. It's not as simple as him like sitting in his garden brewing up plagues and pointing them at targets.
Right.
It's more pervasive, like a creeping mold.
Okay.
It spreads through the cracks and weaknesses of reality. The texts often describe him as this force of nature, a personification of the inevitable decay that touches every aspect of existence.
So it's less about deliberate malice and more about capitalizing on existing vulnerabilities. He's not necessarily creating the despair, he's just exploiting it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Think of entropy, the tendency for things to fall apart, lose their structure, their order. Nurgle embodies that force, and his presence accelerates that whole process.
Okay.
Metals rust, wood rots, societies crumble under the weight of corruption and decay.
I see, yeah. That makes sense. But I'm still struggling with this idea of Nurgle as a god. Like, gods are usually associated with creation and order and purpose.
Right.
How does a god of decay fit into all that?
Well, it's a question that's puzzled theologians and philosophers for centuries.
Right.
Maybe Nurgle represents a different kind of god.
Right.
One who doesn't seek to impose order, but rather to embrace the inherent chaos. He reminds us that creation and destruction are two sides of the same coin, that life and death are inextricably linked.
So instead of fighting against the inevitable, he's surrendered to it.
Right.
He's found a way to find meaning and purpose in the very things that we fear and try to avoid.
Precisely. And that's what makes him so compelling, so terrifying.
Right.
He forces us to confront our own mortality, our own vulnerabilities in a way that most of us desperately try to avoid.
You know, it's funny. We've been talking about Nurgle for a while now. And despite like the grotesque imagery and the plagues,
Right.
the monstrous creatures, there's a part of me that's starting to not sympathize with him exactly,
Yeah,
but I'm kind of starting to see the world through his eyes a little bit.
I get that.
It's a disturbing feeling, like I'm getting a glimpse into a reality that I'd rather not acknowledge.
Yeah, it's a common reaction. He has a way of getting under your skin, so to speak.
Right.
But remember, we're not trying to become followers of Nurgle here.
No, of course not.
We're trying to understand him, dissect his power,
Right.
see the world through his eyes without losing sight of our own perspective.
Right, because as fascinating as this is, I'm not planning on joining his fan club anytime soon. So let's talk about his followers.
Okay.
You mentioned some actively embrace Nurgle's gifts. What motivates them? What do they see that we're missing?
Well, it varies, of course. Some are drawn to the power he offers, the promise of immortality, the ability to transcend the limits of their physical forms.
Okay.
Others seek solace from suffering, a release from pain and hardship. And still, others find a strange kind of beauty in the grotesque.
Okay, hold on. Beauty.
Yeah.
We're talking about like festering sores, bloated corpses, rivers of slime. How can anyone see beauty in that?
Well, remember, beauty is subjective. What we find repulsive, Nurgle's followers might find appealing. They see those boils and sores as badges of honor, symbols of their god's favor. They don't experience pain and suffering the same way that we do. For them, it's more like a tingling sensation, an itch, a warmth.
Okay, that's just wrong.
Yeah.
On so many levels. But you're right. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, I guess. So how does this twisted sense of aesthetics manifest in Nurgle's realm?
Right.
What does his paradise look like?
Well, the land of the Plague Lord is both fascinating and horrifying. The texts describe it as this garden of decay,
Okay.
a place where the ground is soft and yielding, constantly shifting.
Yeah.
Things are rotting and growing anew. Trees sprout from decaying corpses. Rivers flow with pus and bile. The air is thick with spores and miasma.
Not exactly a place I'd want to add to my travel itinerary. But you said there's beauty.
There is. It's a grotesque beauty, but it's there. Think of the intricate patterns of mold on a piece of fruit.
Okay.
The vibrant colors of autumn leaves as they decompose. The delicate skeleton of a leaf after it's withered. There's artistry in decay. A reminder that even in death, there's a kind of beauty.
I see, yeah. It's like finding beauty in the unconventional, appreciating the things that we usually try to avoid. But there's still this underlying horror, the sense of wrongness that I can't shake.
Right, and that's important to remember. We're not condoning Nurgle's actions, just trying to understand them.
Right.
And a key part of that is recognizing that duality. The beauty and the horror, the creation and the destruction, the life and the death.
It's all about balance.
Exactly.
Finding the middle ground.
Nurgle's realm is a place of extremes, but it's also a place of profound truth.
Okay.
It reminds us that decay is not the enemy. It's part of us, part of the world. And by understanding it, accepting it, we can find a new way of relating to life itself.
As much as I'm trying to resist it, there's a part of me that's starting to find this appealing, like a forbidden knowledge.
Yeah.
A glimpse into a reality that most people shy away from.
It's a dangerous path,
Yeah.
but also an enlightening one. Nurgle forces us to confront these things we'd rather ignore, to look at the world through the different lens. And sometimes, even in the darkest places, we find unexpected beauty and profound truths.
Okay, I need a moment to process all this.
Yeah.
We talked about Nurgle's power, his motivations, his twisted sense of beauty.
Right.
But what about his followers? The champions, the demons, the creatures that make up his legions. They're a pretty diverse bunch, right?
Oh, absolutely. Nurgle's army is as varied and fascinating as the god himself. From the lumbering plague bearers to the buzzing rot flies.
Yeah.
The towering great unclean ones, the monstrous pox maggots. Each one reflects a facet of Nurgle's power.
Okay, I'm ready for a parade of pestilence. Let's start with the most iconic of Nurgle's servants, the plague bearers.
Heard?
What's the story behind these shambling, giggling figures?
They're a fascinating contradiction, aren't they? They're described as having this childlike glee,
Right.
always giggling and playing even as they spread disease and decay.
Right.
But they're also meticulous record keepers, tallying every detail of Nurgle's work The sick, the dying, the plague spread, everything's meticulously documented and celebrated.
Like they're accountants of decay,
Yes.
balancing the books of death with a smile.
Yeah.
And they ride those plague toads,
They do.
those giant pustule-covered amphibians.
Yes. Imagine these lumbering, warty creatures, bodies riddled with sores and boils, burdened with carrying these giggling, counting demons into battle. It's bizarre and unsettling.
It really is. Speaking of plague toads, what's the deal with those creatures? Are they just bloated frogs, or is there more to them?
Their origins are shrouded in mystery. Some believe they're just bloated Nurglings who indulged in a bit too much rot and decay. Others say they're punished plague bearers, demoted for failing to keep up with Nurgle's ever-changing tallies.
Either way, they sound delightful. And speaking of delightful, the sources mention Nurgle squashing them for fun. Imagine that, a chaos god relieving stress by squishing giant, pus-filled toads.
It's a strange image, but it speaks to that paradoxical nature of Nurgle. He cherishes life, even as he finds amusement in its destruction. He's a god of contradictions, and his creations reflect that.
So what other delightful creatures are lurking in Nurgle's garden? I'm ready for more.
Well, let's move on to the rot flies, also known as plague drones. These buzzing, disease-carrying insects are vital in spreading Nurgle's touch.
Right.
But what's truly fascinating is their metamorphosis,
Okay.
even more disturbing than their adult form.
Wait, they undergo a metamorphosis?
They do.
What were they before they became flies?
Believe it or not, they start as beasts of Nurgle.
Oh, wow.
You know, those lumbering, tentacled creatures that roam the Plague Lord's gardens. When a beast of Nurgle is killed, the rot fly within begins to take over.
Okay.
It cupates within the decaying flesh, eventually emerging as a fully formed rot fly,
Right.
filled with this burning desire for revenge.
The revenge against the person who killed their former host. That's oddly specific for a demonic entity.
It is, isn't it? It speaks to that lingering connection between the rot fly and its former self.
Huh.
And the sources mention this rather gruesome fate reserved for those who killed their previous incarnations. They consume them whole, trapping them within their mucus-filled abdomen for eternity.
Okay, that's officially the most disturbing thing I've heard all day.
Yeah.
And it's not even lunchtime yet.
Nurgle's realm is full of surprises, but despite the horror, there's this strange logic to it all. The rotfly's desire for revenge is a twisted reflection of Nurgle's own love for his creations.
I guess even a god of decay has a soft spot for his children.
Ah. So what other horrors await us in Nurgle's delightful menagerie?
Let's talk about the bile trolls.
Okay, I think I can guess what those are like. Trolls filled with bile. Sounds delightful.
Truly grotesque creatures.
Okay.
Imagine a troll, already horrifying, twisted further by Nurgle's power.
Right.
They're afflicted with this insatiable hunger that can never be satiated.
Okay.
Their bodies racked with pain. Every movement leaves this trail of corrosive bile. So they're basically walking, talking biohazards. And unlike other Nurgle followers, they don't get to enjoy their afflictions.
Exactly. Bile trolls are cursed to endure constant agony.
Wow.
It's a stark reminder that even within Nurgle's realm, there are degrees of suffering.
Right.
Not all of his creations are granted the same blessings. Some are left to endure a truly horrific existence.
Okay, I'm ready for something a little less bile-filled.
Right.
What else do we have?
Let's talk about the demon flies, the tiny messengers of Nurgle.
Ah, those little guys. We've already met them briefly, haven't we? They're the ones that deliver Nurgle's touch.
That's right. They might be small, but they play a crucial role in spreading Nurgle's influence.
Right.
Imagine these tiny demonic insects buzzing through the air, carrying the power to transform mortals into champions of decay.
Mm-hmm.
They're particularly drawn to Chaos Warriors, those who've already embraced chaos,
Right.
twisting them into even more formidable servants of Nurgle.
So they're like little flying recruitment officers
Pres-
for Nurgle's army.
And they don't just grant power, they change them physically.
Right.
They become bloated, their flesh rotting, their forms twisting to reflect Nurgle's influence. It's a horrifying transformation,
Right.
but one that grants immense strength and resilience.
Okay, so we've got the plague bearers, the rot flies, the bile trolls, the demon flies. What other delightful creatures are waiting to be discovered?
Let's move on to the plague ogres.
Plague ogres.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're taking an already terrifying creature and giving it the Nurgle treatment.
Exactly. Imagine an ogre, already hulking, monstrous, twisted further by Nurgle's power. Their bodies become riddled with disease, their strength amplified, their hunger insatiable.
Okay.
They consume tainted flesh, participate in these horrific rituals that further bind them to Nurgle's will.
Right.
They're not just mindless beasts, they actively embrace Nurgle's gifts.
They're drawn to the power, the release from pain,
hmm
the promise of an existence beyond their limits.
It seems so, yeah.
They represent another facet of Nurgle's appeal, the allure of power, the promise of transcendence, even if it comes at a horrific cost.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm ready for something a bit more grand. We've seen the foot soldiers, the messengers, the monstrous mounts. What about the heavy hitters?
Now we're getting to the truly awe-inspiring, or should I say awe-inspiringly disgusting. Let's talk about the great unclean ones, the truly colossal embodiments of Nurgle's power.
Now we're talking. These are the big guys, the ones that make even the bravest warriors tremble. What are they like?
They're titanic figures, bodies bloated with corruption, their every movement leaving this trail of pestilence.
Right.
They are masters of plague and decay, their touch spreading disease, their presence warping the environment around them.
The sources mention the air getting heavy and humid around them,
Mm.
filled with the stench of decay. I can practically smell it from here.
It is a vivid image, isn't it? They're like walking, talking plagues.
Yeah.
They're every breath a curse upon the world.
Yeah.
And they enjoy it. They revel in the suffering, finding a twisted kind of joy in spreading Nurgle's gifts.
So where do they fit in Nurgle's hierarchy? Are they like generals leading his armies?
They often serve as commanders, yes.
All right.
Their power and knowledge make them ideal leaders for Nurgle's legions.
Right.
But they're more than just generals. They're extensions of Nurgle's will, his agents of change, his instruments of decay. They embody Nurgle, his love of life, his fascination with decay, his twisted sense of humor.
And they're not even the most powerful of Nurgle's demons, are they?
No. Above even the great unclean ones stands one final tier of demonic entity, the demon princes of Nurgle.
Oh, the elite of the elite.
Yes.
What sets them apart?
These are mortals who've ascended to daemonhood through their devotion to Nurgle. They've proven themselves worthy of his ultimate gift, transcending their mortal forms to become beings of pure, unadulterated decay.
So they're like the ultimate success stories in Nurgle's eyes. They rule over his legions, lead the armies of decay.
Precisely. They're the generals, the strategists, the bringers of plagues. They wield immense power, capable of shaping reality itself to Nurgle's will.
Okay, my brain is officially full of Nurgle's delightful decay.
Yeah.
I need a moment to process all this.
Take your time. It's a lot to take in, I know.
Right.
But we're not quite done yet. There's one more category we need to discuss.
Oh, what's that? Don't tell me it's more pus-filled toads.
Not this time. Let's talk about the monstrous beasts that serve as mounts and engines of war for Nurgle's armies.
Okay.
We've met a few already. Plague toads, the pox maggoths, but there's one that deserves special attention.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
The toad dragon.
Toad dragon. I'm not sure if that sounds more like a toad or a dragon.
It's a bit of both, actually. The sources describe them as these colossal reptilian horrors possessing incredible strength and a breath so foul it can liquefy flesh and wither steel.
Wow.
They dwell in the most desolate corners of the northern wastes, their very existence a testament to the corrupting power of chaos.
And they serve as mounts for Nurgle's champions.
Some do, yes. Temercan the Maggot Lord rode a toad dragon named Bubalos into battle.
A maggot lord riding a toad dragon. That must have been a sight to behold.
It must have been terrifying, but toad dragons are more than just mounts.
Right.
They're weapons in their own right, capable of crushing armies and spreading disease with their toxic breath.
Okay, I think I've officially seen enough of Nurgle's monstrous menagerie for one day. I'm starting to feel a little queasy.
I understand. It's not every day that one delves into the world of decay and disease. But we've only scratched the surface of Nurgle's realm. There's so much more to explore.
Oh, no.
Oh.
You're not suggesting we dive even deeper into this delightful decay, are you?
Don't worry. We'll take a break from the monstrous creatures for now. But there's still so much to learn about Nurgle's influence on the world, the spread of his plagues, the impact on mortal societies.
Okay, I'm intrigued. But maybe we can hold off on the pus and bile for a while. I think my stomach needs a break.
Fair enough. We'll explore those aspects of Nurgle's realm in our next segment, but with a slightly less visceral approach.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so we've gone deep into Nurgle's realm, from his paradoxical nature to his monstrous menagerie. It's been a wild ride. I'm still trying to wrap my head around this concept of horrific beauty.
It is a challenging concept, but I think it speaks to that duality of existence.
Right.
We often try to categorize things as good or bad, beautiful or ugly, but reality is so much more nuanced.
Yeah.
And Nurgle, in his own grotesque way, forces us to confront that complexity.
We left off last time with that question. Can we find acceptance in that natural process of decay without, giving in to Nurgle's chaotic influence?
Right.
And it's a tough one, especially after seeing all the lengths his followers go to embrace the rotten disease.
Yeah, it's a question worth pondering because whether we like it or not, decay is an inescapable part of life.
Right.
We see it everywhere, the changing seasons, aging, even the breakdown of societies.
Yeah.
It's easy to fear decay, to fight against it, to see it as purely negative.
It's like we're constantly trying to outrun our own mortality, maintain that illusion of control over something that's ultimately beyond us.
Exactly. But what if, instead of fearing decay, we saw it as a transformation, a necessary part of a larger cycle?
Okay.
The sources we looked at highlighted that cyclical nature, this interplay between creation and destruction that drives existence.
The breakdown of organic matter enriches the soil, providing nutrients for new life. Death feeds life. Decay fuels growth.
Right.
The concept that's it's beautiful and terrifying at the same time.
Exactly. Recognizing that decay is not the end, but rather a transition,
Yep.
a necessary step in the ongoing process of renewal.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
But how do we, as mortals who aren't exactly keen on being covered in boils,
Hmm.
find that acceptance without falling into Nurgle's embrace?
Well, it is a delicate balance, isn't it? It's about finding that middle ground
Yeah.
between acknowledging the inevitability of decay and maintaining a sense of hope, of purpose, of meaning.
Right.
Recognizing that decay is not something to be feared or worshipped, but rather a force to be understood, respected, and even embraced.
Embracing decay without giving into despair, without losing sight of the beauty and value of life, that's a tough challenge.
It is, but I think it's a challenge worth undertaking.
Yeah.
By confronting our fear of decay, acknowledging its place in the grand scheme of things, we can find a deeper appreciation for life, the fleeting beauty of existence.
As strange as it sounds, I think exploring Nurgle's realm has given me a new perspective on my own mortality. It's like, by looking into the abyss, I've come to understand myself a bit better.
I think that's a really profound insight, and it
Yeah.
speaks to the power of facing our fears, of exploring the unknown, even when it's unsettling.
Absolutely. So what's the takeaway here? Should we all be building shrines to Nurgle in our backyards? I'm kidding, of course.
Oh, of course. But maybe the takeaway is this. Decay is not the enemy. It's a part of us, a part of the world. And by understanding it, accepting it, we can find a new way of relating to life itself.
It's like, instead of seeing decay as the opposite of life, we can see it as a partner,
Yeah.
a collaborator in this grand cosmic dance.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe by embracing this perspective, we can even find a bit of humor in the absurdity of it all.
Now there's a thought. Finding humor in the face of decay.
Yeah.
It's definitely a Nurgle-esque approach,
It is.
but maybe there's something to it?
Perhaps. Laughter is a powerful force, capable of disarming fear and bringing light to the darkest of places.
Well, I have to say, this deep dive into Nurgle's realm has been unexpectedly enlightening.
Oh, go.
I came in expecting nothing but horror and disgust,
Yeah.
but I found this world of complexity, paradox, even humor.
That's the beauty of a deep dive, isn't it? You never know what you'll find.
Yeah.
Sometimes the most unexpected discoveries are the most profound.
Well said. And on that note, I think we've reached the end of our journey into the delightful decay of Nurgle's realm.
Until next time, may your gardens flourish, your laughter be infectious, and your journey through life be filled with growth, decay, and everything in between.